Take a look at this message I sent on Reddit 6 months ago. You can already tell by the title of this video that this was a pretty dumb idea. I carried out what I called a 2-week instant gratification experiment. 2 weeks of 100% instant gratification, overdosing on unlimited Netflix, weed, porn, jacking off, gaming, even drinking in the apartment. I was living like a waste man, like a loser. I wanted to do everything at once just to go all in. Spoiler alert, it ended badly. It was actually hard for me to stop, and this was all just a rationalization for my addiction. So let's talk about the experiments. What exactly did I do? I'm going to tell you my day-to-day schedule, my timetable. I'd wake up pretty late, probably about 11 a.m. and start smoking straight away. Then I would start eating shit. This was the point where we would order food twice a day. So the bank balance was just dipping down. We're eating disgusting processed, the low quality food that you get from the oven aisle in Aldi, the mozzarella sticks and eating junk food all day, going for food shops that were entirely snacks, like literally £30 spent on just snacks, and eating all of that in 2 days. Smoking was pretty heavy, but not as heavy as full-on stoners, so it was about 3 bags, 6 grams over about 6 days, so that's quite a lot. I started jacking off even though I usually do no fap. I was going on 4chan and looking at some pretty messed up porn. That was not so great. That was like the point where I felt like a full-on cave goblin man dwelling cell, like the 27-year-old loser who's in his mum's basement kind of thing. I felt like that. I remember it would be midnight, 2 a.m, 4 a.m, and I'd still be awake just scrolling on 4chan, just on YouTube, on Reddit, just smoking till I could not smoke anymore, just jacking off. But like I was literally living with my girlfriend, and she was in bed just in the other room. And instead of having the desire to have sex, I literally had more of a desire to just jack off to the pixels. I was binge eating literally all day, every day. And I remember that after the first couple days, obviously I did have a binge eating problem before this, but I amplified it for the experiments. After a couple days or so, it began to feel completely normal. I didn't get that sickness, that full feeling after you binge eat. It actually felt normal and somewhat positive to bingey. It felt really comforting knowing that I was going to really get full and would order food a lot. I'd watch YouTube, Netflix, and play video games all day. Completed Dying Light 1 and 2 in a couple of days, playing quite a lot of Minecraft and League of Legends. League of Legends is the hard one. I think anyone who plays that knows how quickly 4 hours goes by. Played a lot of League of Legends, but didn't really have the capability to play the normal Summoner's Rift, the normal 5v5, because it would be high all day and probably a little bit drunk and just sick on the binge eating and shit. So we'd just be playing ARAM games, just constantly just replaying them. At least playing games for about 6 hours a day. For most of the time, it used to be just listening to music while smoking and eating. So what you may be wondering, unless this is normal life for you, is what does instant gratification overload feel like? How does it feel to go 100% into the bad habits that we in the self-improvement community don't want to get into? You can see from the Reddit message that even 3 days in, I felt disgusting. It was like I was telling this guy I was messaging on Reddit that it was wrong, but I couldn't actually stop myself. I felt empty. I hated it. I felt like I literally had induced an addiction to all of this stuff in just a few days. About 5 days in, I actually wanted to stop doing the experiment, and I felt like I couldn't. I literally felt like I couldn't stop doing it wasn't even the experiment anymore. It just became my life. When instant gratification, these addictions, video games and drugs and binge eating and all this bad stuff, when it's got its grips on you, it doesn't let go easily. And you can see that I gained quite a lot of weight, which I did the mathematical equation for, that roughly it would have been about 1 true pound of fat, maybe 1 to 2 pounds of fat, and 7 pounds of water weight, and just that junk in your stomach weighing you down. When real life gets worse and it's getting worse, it's actually so much harder to bring yourself back into reality to start making progress again. So it was actually so much more comforting every day to start smoking straight away, because if I didn't smoke straight away, I would wake up knowing that I'm 7 pounds heavier. I was in pretty good shape before I started this experiment, and in just 2 weeks I look like this, which I know that most people will say like, oh, the after picture isn't so bad, but we've got to be relative here. The after picture is after 5 years, 6 years of training consistently, and I gained about 10 pounds in 2 weeks. During this time, I had huge levels of anxiety. I barely left the apartment. I remember I would hear people outside the apartment. This was in the middle of lockdown. I would just hear people going outside and I would think that they were trying to hurt me. I would hear the police siren and I think that they were coming for me. Pretty sure someone got stabbed in the town centre not too far away, so we heard the screams of that and I thought it was coming for me. I thought literally that I was in danger like 24/7 and I didn't leave much. I didn't leave the apartment much. My depression symptoms skyrocketed. I think they were pretty high before this, and I remember taking some tests online. You can do like some of the assessments and stuff, and when I would take them, it would literally say that I had major anxiety and depression. And it was so strange because I felt like it couldn't be any other way. It's hard to explain, but I really felt like of course it was going to be like that. Like you couldn't answer those questions differently. I couldn't imagine life without those symptoms and life without such a high score on the little scales, the assessments that I did. My weight went up significantly. This was in the middle of the lockdown, so I wasn't even training anyway, although I did try to do some bodyweight workouts, but during this time, obviously I just stopped that. Weight went up, self-esteem, confidence, happiness, body language probably all went down. My testosterone definitely significantly decreased. I used to have sex about twice a day, and then during this time, it used to be, I think, 3 times, something like that over the 2 weeks. Like it would go 4 days without it. I can't even believe that my girl never even said anything, but it was like it wasn't even, not possible. I wouldn't say like I had erectile dysfunction, but I guess this was coupled with the breaking the nofap and just jacking off literally 2-3 times a day. So obviously when you get that urge out, which I've mentioned before in my nofap video, when you get that urge out by yourself to the pixels, you just don't need real women in your life. And that is like one of the worst things you can do for yourself, because having real women in your life, or the drive to get women in your life, is why we do most of the things we do. It's why we work hard to get resources. It's why we work hard to go to the gym. Everyone will say, but I do it for myself, I improve for myself. But subconsciously, whether you want to admit it or not, we of course do most of our things to get to the ideal part of life, which is to reproduce. I learned a whole lot about testosterone, so 100 likes and I will do a practical guide to increasing testosterone. I will include everything I've ever heard and seen and researched that could improve your testosterone, that you could start doing the moment that you watch the video. So go ahead, leave a like, and whilst you're at it, leave a little comment so that I get the viewer engagement in YouTube and the algorithm likes me. An interesting part of this instant gratification overload that I didn't even expect would come up is that I started getting a lot more spots, especially on my actual head. Like there's this one video I took where you can just see like a bunch of like spots on the back of my head, and that shit hurt, man. They were actually so painful that my head was just like sore. Maybe it was a coincidence, it just happens to happen, but I think that was probably caused by the sugar, because I was having about 300 to 500 grams of sugar a day. Yes, really. I cried for more than half of the days. Probably all of them. Maybe bar like 1 or 2 days I didn't cry, but for most of the days I cried. I had arguments with my girl and I shouted at her, which I don't think I've ever done before, because I'm not that type of guy who gets angry at girls. I'm just like the nonchalant, like easygoing. I brought up stuff that happened years ago, like little bitches do, and that makes me just think that is probably because of a reduction of testosterone. I think when you've got a healthy level of testosterone, you don't do these things. Like you don't just cry all the time, you don't bring up arguments, and you don't shout to people. You've just got that level of confidence and, you know, knowing your worth kind of thing. So you don't get into like arguments as much. But I was literally arguing for the first time in a while, which was so strange. And finally, I was just more angry. So I think the anger was definitely a symptom of the anxiety. When my anxiety goes up, my anger goes up. Anger, I think, is like my self-defense system. But obviously, whilst I was quite anxious, I was a pussy, I didn't really go outside. I was then putting the anger into companies on I was putting out the anger to companies on Twitter. So any company that annoyed me, I just go on Twitter. I made like an account with a picture of me where I look like a serial killer. I'm not gonna lie. If this guy starts like harassing your company on Twitter, you do not want to mess with him, because it looks like he's got nothing to lose. So for example, one company had like an automatic bill letter being sent to the apartment, and it was for the previous owner. So it's not like you see the letter, see it's for the previous owner and think, okay, it's not an issue. But I took that as a personal offense. I took that they were literally trying to like steal my money and that I need to like tell them to do. So I'd call up a few times and I'd literally shout at them. Went on Twitter, blasted a few companies, and almost afterwards it was like, it hit me that, oh, I'm that guy. I'm literally that little piece of shit who shouts at customer service reps. Because I've worked in customer service, I've had those people shout at me, and I just think, you're not even angry at me, bro. You're angry because your life shit. That's why you're yelling. Happy people don't yell when the situation is bad, no matter how bad the situation is. You're angry at the customer service rep, or you're angry on Twitter because your life shit. And I proved my own theory right. My life was shit. I did a stupid ass experiment and I put that anger out onto other people. So what are the lessons learned of this dumbass instant gratification experiment? Number one is the rationalization of addiction. It's only kind of afterwards now that I can look back and think the only reason I said that this was an experiment is because I wanted to guilt-free do these things. Oddly enough, this makes me think of people who want to get famous in video games, who want to get into esports. I've always said to every friend that is a rationalization for your addiction. You don't want to do this for work. You'd of course love to make money from playing video games, but you don't want to do this for work. It's just that you've got an addiction and you can rationalize it by saying, oh, but maybe I'll play esports and then it's not too bad if I play 16 hours a day. And so far, 100% of the people that have, come to me with this, 100% of them tried to make it into work, actually started putting in 12-hour days, 14-hour days for a couple of days, for a week or so, and then came and said, it was actually disgusting. It was so much work and it was not enjoyable. It wasn't even playing the game anymore. I was literally doing work when I was playing League of Legends and trying to get into competitive season and shit. That really reminds me of this experiment where I started with the addiction and I had that sense of the lizard brain saying, oh, but wait, if you be a smartass and say that it's an experiment, you won't feel as bad. And so that's what I did, and that's what people who want to go into esports seem to do. In all of the things that I indulged in, it's very, very similar to binge eating. And it's that idea that, okay, I will do it today, I'll really do it today, I'll overdo it today, but I will make sure to do it less tomorrow. And I think that is the rationale behind the 2-week experiment. It's the idea of going all in for 2 weeks, really getting the maximum enjoyment, knowing that after 2 weeks, I'm definitely not going to do these things ever again. That's the binge eaters mentality. Like, oh, but I'll eat all the cake today, and then I promise I will never eat cake again. That binge starve cycle has never worked for anyone. Another lesson learned is that instant gratification actually makes you into a bad person. You are not your nicest, kindest person when you are indulging in these things. It's something that we've never wanted to admit because we don't want to say that, oh, people who watch Netflix all day are bad people. People who smoke weed all day are bad people. But they're at least not as good as they could be. Because when your life is shit, when you're overindulging in instant gratification and you're just rationalizing the addiction, you inevitably are not going to be as happy and as positive and as nice and kind and loving as you could be. And this made me realize that the more instant gratification you do, more likely that it turns you into just quite a horrible person. At the very least, someone who I don't want to be around, because it makes you into like a shell of a person. It strips you away from your own personality, from your own thoughts, the things that you identify with when you journal and you meditate and you exercise and you do a lot of thinking. It strips you away from that. You don't have a personality anymore. You are a stoner. You don't have a personality anymore. You're a guy who plays League. All you do is consume. You become what you consume. You are what you eat. And so I was a salted caramel truffle. I was a League of Legends player. I was a stoner. I wasn't Hamza. I wasn't the guy who has like the personality that you've tuned in for. I was a shell of a person. Even though it sounds horrible for me to say that this is what a lot of people are like, I think now that I believe that that's true. That if all you do is consume, you just become the platform. If all you do is scroll on Instagram for 6 hours a day, you become Instagram. It's so hard to pull yourself out of the comfortable grip that instant gratification has on you, because the remedy to a lifestyle like this is obviously to start doing the work, start committing to delayed gratification. But when you've got a lifestyle like this, it's not just the one-step process of doing the work, because now what you've got to do is reduce the instant gratification and increase the delayed gratification. To make your life better, you've got to do both steps. That's when it gets difficult. That's when it gets very difficult. In a practical sense, that means that whilst you're high, you may have to go to the gym, which you're not going to do. It means that in the middle of your 6-hour League of Legends session, you should probably go and do your homework or your university work, which you're probably not going to do because your mind's just fumbled, it's fried. And what I found was that you can't even reach for help. You can't. I'm surprised I even sent this message to this guy on Reddit, but like I had people to message. I had people who could have probably like helped me and spoke to me, but it felt like I couldn't even speak to them. It felt like I couldn't send the message out to my family saying like something's wrong. Like I'm literally like being an addict right now. I'm being a waste man. I need someone to like pull me out of this situation, this environment, because you've got that massive sense of guilt and that self-hatred towards yourself. When you keep committing to the instant gratification, you feel like shit. And not only do you feel like shit because of the negatives of the instant gratification, you feel like shit because you know you're a waste man. You know that you're literally just ruining your life with your own actions. And so you don't even feel like you've got the confidence to simply send out a message to get someone to help you, because you almost don't feel like you're worth it. For some people, this life is normal. This was my sickening, dumb 2-week instant gratification experiment. For some people, this life is normal. For my girl at the time, she didn't even think it was an experiment. We were just smoking and eating a little bit more. Not this experiment in general, but the whole experience of being a uni student and just doing instant gratification, not working hard. It made me realize that most people are happy with an absolute mediocre life, that consume is normal to them. When you've seen the other side of life, when you've been watching self-improvement videos and you're seeing a guy like me who has experienced all this stuff and then who's tried to level up his life, and you can clearly see the difference between my life and my personality between 6 months ago and now, it's like that serves as inspiration for you to not do this instant gratification lifestyle, this consume lifestyle. But for some people, they haven't actually ever been shown that this is possible, that this self-improvement lifestyle, this little instant gratification, lots of delayed gratification, is something that they can do. For most people, they've only ever watched their parents and older people do the exact same thing that they're doing. Netflix all day, drinking all day, sitting around. It made me realize the importance of environments, because this type of experiment, this instant gratification lifestyle, would not have been done at home whilst I was living with family. Of course not. I was only able to do something as stupid as this and be in this shitty lifestyle of consuming when I lived with someone who was kind of similar to this, it was just normal to watch Netflix all day. It's so weird that it's not even an insult. It is literally normal for some people to just watch Netflix all day and to just eat shit all day, not eat for nutrition, just eat for taste all day, to literally not even exercise or to not meditate or to not read a book, like, ever. But finally, on a positive note, I am actually very grateful for this experience. It was a dumb experiment. I was literally an idiot for doing it, but I try to look at the positive side of everything, and I try to induce self-love, because I know that through self-love comes a great deal of progress. And so I look back at it now with gratitude, because what I experience has helped me now in my coaching and these videos that I make, because I have experienced this life. I have dived deep into the bad habits that we're all doing. Now, of course, I was doing these habits anyway before this experiment, but for this time, it was like I was purposely trying to reach 100% bad habit. So it's kind of like I've got relative experience to probably the guy who's watching this, who does bad habits the most. I've probably been on his level at some point, and I'm grateful for that. It's a shitty experience, but I'm so grateful for it, because now I have the experience to actually teach you guys how to get out of it, what the mindset feels like, and how good life feels when you do pull yourself away from that. So I'm using the dumb little experiments as a lesson for my future self to not rationalize any kind of addiction. If there's something of instant gratification that you want to enjoy, then enjoy it. Enjoy it with a bit of guilt-free enjoyment, stress-free. Don't think that the only way you get to enjoy the bad habits, the instant gratification, the video games and stuff, is if you overdo it. Happily go and play an hour a day. Happily go and watch a bit of Netflix every day. Go and eat a bit of chocolate every day. That is what life is supposed to be for. Go and literally smoke some weed every now and then. Do not rationalize it because of that guilt feeling that you put onto yourself to think, wait, I feel like shit doing it, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to binge eat, and then tomorrow I'll make up for it. Because binge eating sucks. If you've experienced binge eating, which some of the guys probably have, then it's the worst way to live. This experiment actually made me realize that you can binge many different types of addiction, and that's what I did for 2 weeks. Disgusting, absolutely disgusting. But I hope you appreciate I hope you don't appreciate the sacrifice I made, because I was stupid as hell. But I hope that with this positive mindset, a little bit of gratitude for it, it's actually helped me with coaching, so that's something I'm grateful for. If you feel like what I may have learned from this experiment is similar to the lifestyle that you are in, and you feel like you actually want the transformation that I have done for myself, which is pretty insane. 6 months, I'm in the best shape of my life. I've got a somewhat successful business. I'm doing pretty good for myself. And 6 months ago, I was a full-on stoner, depressed, anxious, kind of fat, kind of angry guy. So if you feel like you want that type of transformation, I do one-to-one coaching. We'll hop on the call and I will teach you everything I know, and I think it will greatly help you if you've got a life like what I had for this time. Boys, I was on a podcast discussing instant versus delayed gratification. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours of us discussing it, how it affects young men, how to pull yourself out of it, plus a whole range of self-improvement topics. So if you like hearing me talk and you just want to keep hearing me talk for another 2 hours, it will be linked in the description. Go and click on it and listen to it right now. This 2-week experiment was just before I started my dopamine detoxing, and it actually made me learn a lot about the easy and bad dopamines, the instant versus delayed gratification. I did a 30 minutes or so video of it, which has gotten pretty popular, and it will pop up on screen right now. I talk about all of this, and I talk about the dangers of the instant gratification society that we find ourselves in. Click on that video right now. Take care. Yeah.